So I've been seeing a lot of controversy between the best of one and best of three debate, and the reason I came here with Blitz Esports was to kind of shed some light on my thoughts about it and why the situation isn't as dire as it seems. I think a lot of people are worried about the actual competitiveness of us stacking up to other regions, NA being the best they can be, and if you really want that, for NA teams and pro players want that for each other, I think it comes down to the practice. The reality of the situation is, hey, we play 3 games on stage, but we play 30, 40 games of scrims off stage, and that's every single week. And those 30 or 40 games is what really is driving the improvement, is what's really driving what team becomes better. I think that's a huge reason why TSM has always done really well, is having scrimmed them and having played against them. I think more so than any other team in NA, they get more out of practice and they just take practice to a higher standard than I think other teams do on a consistent level. And so I think that's what really makes the difference for NA teams, and it's not going to be the number of games played on stage. LCS is where some improvement happens, yes, but I feel like LCS is more so the test than the study time. I don't think best of threes versus best of ones is going to change who the better team really is. It comes down to each and every single day of practice, what your schedule looks like, how hard you're pushing yourself in each day, and how much your team's really improving. And I think that is the real indicator of a competitive level of a team. And I think that is the reason that LCK historically has been better than NA, is because just their practice structure and their infrastructure for coaching and everything is just so much better. I don't think it has much to do with, oh, they play best of threes instead of best of ones. I think just looking at how teams practice, and it's something that NA has been improving year by year. So I don't think it's something to be too worried about, especially with franchising coming in and all of that. I really think that teams are going to level up, and CLG having MSG, it's pretty insane, like the resources that are coming in, I think, for every single team. So I'm really optimistic about the future of practice and the future of NA, and I don't think playing best of ones will be the end of it, and I think we'll actually end up being better off, even though we are playing best of ones. There's a lot of things to improve for scrim culture for North American teams. I think what a lot of teams in LCK have is, they have an office setting. And I think that's something that a lot of North American teams are moving into. They're getting the office. They're getting the separation between work and kind of play. It actually is kind of subtle, but it's a huge difference because, waking up in a gaming house and going to your scrim room as opposed to waking up like having to get ready and drive to get to the studio, you're in a different mindset, you're in a different environment, and things get a lot more serious. I think it's really important to kind of have that level of seriousness. I also think just like having the academy teams being leveled up like they are next year is a huge boon, because it kind of not only drives that competitiveness from within, but it also just gives you another solid team to practice against, because I think the level of those players is going to get higher and higher with the stability that's coming in. And so not only do you have that solid practice partner who you can practice all these strats against, but they can also replace you if you're not performing well enough. And so I think those are just two of like the many factors that I think are going to improve next year. And I'm just looking forward to the LCS getting more and more serious, as opposed to when I played in season 3 with best of ones, when things were just getting into it. And I was only 17 at the time, and we didn't really have that structure. We didn't really have that infrastructure to make things serious. So I've played in LCS every single split since it started, and I've played best of one and best of three. And some of the concerns I've heard is that people can use cheese strategies, or people can use level ones to win, and that won't really prove they're the better team. But what I'd say to that is I think level one is actually a huge part of the game that people aren't even abusing in best of three. And if you look through some of CLG's games this split, when we started using level ones, it was a huge advantage to us. But I think it's just something that if teams even in best of three start using, they can win a whole series out of it. And I think it's just a part of the game that's not being abused, and it doesn't really matter whether it's best of three or best of one. It still has the same impact, in my opinion. So having been to Worlds after a best of one season and best of three season, I can honestly tell you that it didn't really make that much of a difference. Like thinking about it and looking back at it, season 5 versus season 6, when I went to Worlds, I don't really think the best of one versus best of three prepared me better. It was more so about the Korean boot camp and the practice there that kind of made the difference for how well we did as a team. And so I think that the number of games in the season wasn't really a big indicator or really a huge performance difference for international competition based on my own experience. You don't really get to play out the whole series, and you don't really get that momentum feeling that you do get in the best of 3, where even if you lose the game 1, you kind of get to work on keeping your team mentality strong, kind of keeping the team in it and seeing if you can come back from a deficit. And I do think that's one thing that you don't really get in a best of 1, and you won't really get until playoffs, and some teams don't even make playoffs. So I think that's something that will need to be looked at and kind of will be sorely missed. But it's just kind of one of the effects of moving to best of 1. And I think while it's not that big of a loss, it's something that since I've been a veteran for so long, I've already been able to train up. But especially for some of the newer players, like I'd want them to be able to get that like mental conditioning and that conditioning as a team to be able to play from behind, play down a game, because when it comes to best of 5s, and you're down 0-1, you're down 0-2, it takes a lot for yourself and your team to be able to say, we can win this. A best of 3 isn't as bad. You're only down 0-1. You can easily come back and win the second game. But, imagining a best of 5 to another level where you're down 0-2 and kind of building that, having that fortitude as a team and having that strength to be able to come back is definitely pretty hard. So I think that's something that we'll be missing out on with best of 1s. And at the end of it, honestly, looking at it, I think the biggest reason Riot is doing it is because of the marketing, because of the viewership. Like, viewership has been going down. Things have not been looking that great from that end. And I think that moving to best of 1, obviously a huge boon for that. But kind of what I wanted to show you guys and shed some light on was that best of 1 really isn't as bad as everyone's making it out to be. And I don't think everyone needs to freak out. It's completely understandable to still be a little bit worried about best of 1s, but I'm hoping with the information I provided that you guys don't see it as a dire of a situation as you initially did, and are kind of a little bit more relieved that with the improvement of NA practice next year, that even though it is best of 1s next year, I don't think the quality of teams will deteriorate.
For more league interviews and analysis, subscribe to our channel. You can also find stats, discussions, and more on our website and mobile app at blitzesports.com.